Hi, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and I been urged to bring this message by my mother, who's visiting me from heaven. I was meant to do it yesterday, and I pushed it off and went to sleep. And so she's encouraged me today. The main encouragement, the main uh, person that's bringing this forth, the one that encourages me to go forth and do what my mother wants me to do is Mary Gibson, a good friend of mine. I got a friend called Shane and Dundee, two friends called Shane and Dundee, and I know that they'll appreciate this, and Carolyn, who watches my videos. So for those people, especially Mary Gibson, I'm going to let my mother speak. This video is going to be called My First Year in Heaven, and this week on the 2nd of August, my mother had passed away for one whole year, and I don't, as a son, know much about that year, but I'm used to, in New Age terms, to use a New Age term, channeling. I'm used to bringing the voice of a saint, and many times I don't know what they're going to say. They just speak through me, and that should be the way that preachers preach. They should just have the Holy Spirit speak through them. There should be nothing strange about that. But I have no idea what my mother's going to say, and so I'm a little nervous. But Mary, the fact that Mary's going to be listening to this urges me on. So I'll just put my mother on. My mother's name is June Payne, and I hope that this video goes far and wide someday. Hi, Matthew. My son is nervous at the moment. I've had him get a coffee. I've had him put his video recorder on, and his head's playing up a little bit with this new lighting. But I'm here. He's already had his first temptation to turn the video off, and he succumbed to keeping it on. He kept the video going. I haven't told him much about my first year. He did know the fact that I often went out in public, and Matthew's somewhat well known in heaven, and every time I went out in public with my mother, people would come up to me and ask questions about Matthew, and that became one of the favorite pastimes of heaven, asking me questions. And when I answered questions, screens used to come up all around heaven, TV screens, and people would stop what they're doing and listen to the answers to the questions. And everyone in heaven has questions for me about Matthew. And of course, that sounds really prideful of Matthew reporting that, but he continues to be a man of integrity and faith and honesty. And if we talked about his sin life, he's just as honest about that too. So for those of you who think, oh, this guy's no great person, why would he be great in heaven? Well, you just keep on listening, and reserve your judgment, or just turn the video off. People who know Matthew know how special he is. So that was one of my assignments. Michael Jackson is very close to me, and John Lennon is close to me. Many of you would have an issue with John Lennon being in heaven, and Michael Jackson to that end being in heaven, but they both are. And Michael has been putting together multiple albums, writing about saints in the Bible's lives, and comparing him to Matthew's life. And I've spent 6 months of the year meeting saints out of the Bible. Not all of the saints of the Bible are written in the Bible. There's a lot of people that did great work in the early church and in the Old Testament that were valets to the king and cupbearers to the king and servants of the king, and there were servants to the prophets, and there were a lot of important people that were unmentioned in the Bible, but they're important to God and they're important in heaven. And I've spent at least 6 months of heaven's time, of earth's time, traveling with Michael Jackson, interviewing these saints. And Michael's been writing songs about the saints, and each of the saints, he's been comparing that saint's life to Matthew. He's been looking at aspects of that saint's life and looking at Matthew's whole life and drawing comparisons between the saint and Matthew. And he's got this big collection of songs now that demonstrate that Matthew is on par with many of these saints. And it's been a really joyful time meeting all the celebrities of heaven. I'm overwhelmed that I'm counted worthy, and that's just the grace of God, isn't it? that we get things that we're not worthy of, and heaven has lifted me up and put me on the shoulders and carried me around a number of times, because I was Matthew's mother, and they've sent Matthew to this world like a Neo type Matrix sort of savior to the world, and he's not known yet, but in years to come he'll be known. And I've just had such a wonderful time with Michael. Me and Michael are extremely close. I'm a lot closer to him than his mother, and Michael spends a lot of his time bilocating, like in heaven and on earth at the same time, walking around with Matthew. Matthew's quite unaware of his presence, but he's collecting information and watching how Matthew operates, and he's going to inspire musicians in the future to write songs with the information he gains from Matthew's life. But some of the saints I had some good time with. I spent a good amount of time with Moses, and it was very touching because I used to say to Matthew that he doesn't have to carry the whole world on his shoulders, and he just carried the whole world, the burdens of the world on his shoulders. And I used to plead with him, get rid of that burden, you don't need that. And I was able to speak to Moses and see the same thing in him when he talked about the Israelites and how they're in bondage. Matthew's got this very intimate relationship with Jesus, and he's seen for years that the Christian church is in Egypt and they're slaves, and the whole world are slaves, and he understands that the whole world is in the matrix and they've just been sold a lie, and money really isn't the answer, and the God they serve isn't really God. And so I spent quite a long time with Moses, and when I was on earth, Matthew led me into a vision where I saw heaven, and I saw a woman dancing, and Matthew asked me who it was, and I said, it's my stillborn child, Karen, uh, which was a female, and she was dancing ballet. And then I saw someone else, which was someone who died in our church. Then I saw someone with a beard, an older looking man with a beard, and they say everyone looks 30. Well, Moses doesn't look 30 in heaven. And Matthew asked me who it was, and I didn't say who it was. And Matthew said he already knew who it was. He's just waiting for confirmation. So don't be afraid to say who you think it is. And I said it's Moses. And Matthew was interested because he'd been to the throne room a couple of times. And so he asked me, he said, can you ask him if he's seen me before? And he was expecting Moses to say, yeah, I've seen him sitting on Jesus' throne one time. But Moses said, yeah, he'd seen me worshipping on a bridge. He'd seen Matthew worshiping on a bridge. And this is Matthew. I used to go to a red light district and minister to prostitutes 6 nights a week. And on the way home, I used to worship on the Harbour Bridge, Sydney Harbour Bridge, a place where I was going to choose to suicide at one time. I used to worship the Lord, and Moses was saying he could see from heaven and see me worshipping there. And so that was really special. So back to June. I've spent some time with Moses, and I earth time in heaven time, and don't quote me because things are fluid and not always the same, but it's about 3 weeks of heaven time for every day of earth time. I died, and within 3 weeks, I'd caught up with Matthew's understanding of the Bible, and he'd been studying for 40 years. So in 9 weeks of Earth time, I pretty well caught up. Supernatural, you don't forget things in heaven. So I've spent at least half my time in heaven with saints. I spent the second half of time in heaven ministering to the cloud of witnesses who are going to work with people on earth. There's many saints from heaven that are going to make themselves known to people on earth, and they're going to work hand in hand and help people on earth reap the harvest. And I've been working with those kingdom saints that are going to work hand in hand with the people on earth, and been taking my knowledge of the all-time greatest saints and their wisdom, and I've been mentoring these saints on how to reach this world, this modern world. And it's a really exalted position that I would have a chance to work with the saints that are going to reap this world, and certainly not deserve. Once again, it's only by the grace of God. So I've been really busy, and up until today, Matthew wouldn't have believed this, but he received a prophecy 2 days ago that gave him a lot of courage. Off his friend David Reed, you can check out the prophecy a couple of days ago by his friend David Reed, and you'll see how that would have encouraged him. So The reason I work with Moses and Elijah and Elisha and uh, Kim Clement and Michael Jackson, John Lennon, is they're all going to be saints who minister to people on earth and mentor, and Bob Jones. So there's a lot of saints in heaven that are going to work with people on earth who are already working with people on earth. And I've been speaking to them and mentoring them in a fashion. And excuse me, Matthew. So that's just a little message for you guys. My first 6 months in heaven, I was interviewing and spending time with the all-time greats and comparing their lives to Matthew's. And the second 6 months, I've been mentoring the saints who are going to be the great cloud of witnesses, working with the kingdom saints that work on earth to bring in the last day's harvest. And that's my little secret. And there you go, Matthew. Now you know. I look forward to your response, Mary and Shane and Dundee and Carolyn. I look forward to seeing all your responses on YouTube. God bless.